7 o'clock in the morning, Sunday, August 13th, and I'm driving to meet James over at 300 Suns, where we'll be brewing with their head brewer and owner, Dan. Should be a good day. When James and I got to 300 Suns, Dan and Nick had already prepared a good amount of water to start the mash when we got there. They had it prepared, heated up to 162 degrees Fahrenheit. Now this is so the mash can kind of soak and get all of the sugars out of the grain and help it become beer. It helps give it its body. We got to put in 500 pounds of grain into the mash tun. Now the grain that we used was just an upscaled version of our homebrew Grapefruit IPA, and he got it off beersmith.com. What the mashing process in the mash tun does is it converts all of the starches in the grain into sugars, which prepare it for fermentation. They also have a false bottom, which allows all of the liquid to get through, but none of the grain itself.
You know, I feel like this is a much bigger grain bill than what we usually use, James. What makes you think that?
We mashed this particular Grapefruit IPA for an hour in total. Once we let the mash tun convert all of those starches into sugar, we started the sparge. What the sparge of the grains does is it's basically you're just dripping water onto all of those grains, and it allows all of the sugars that are stuck on the grains to kind of get processed into your kettle or your boil tank. Once we got all of the wort from the mash tun into the kettle, we had to try to heat it up to a boil. So we're bringing it from about 152 degrees from the mash level, the mash temperature, to about, on this system, Dan always got it up to 201 degrees, typically, for the boil. But while we were waiting for that, we had to go get some breakfast. Just got the burritos. Opa! Opa! When we got back from getting our breakfast burritos, it still wasn't up to a boil. So we ended up having to do more heavy lifting, getting the grain out of the mash tun, which, if you can imagine, when a grain gets wet, it gets heavier. So we had to shovel it all and put it into buckets and let a local farmer come and pick it up. Using these spent grains for another alternative, such as feeding different animals or using as a fertilizer, is a really great way to get the most out of all those grains. After we were done doing all that heavy lifting and getting that grain prepared for the farmer, the boil was finally ready. At this time, it was time to throw in all of our hops. So we had 4 hop additions, just like in our home brew, and we let Dan do the first one because there's a higher chance of boil over during this process for the first addition. So what we had to do to prevent this boil over was when you pour in the hops, we just had to watch it and have the hose ready to spray down the bubbles if that happened to occur. Again, we used a combination of Chinook, Cascade, and Simcoe hops for this beer. It was all scaled based off the calculation of Beersmith to fit the 7-barrel system that we were brewing on versus our 5-gallon batch. When it was James's turn to throw in the third hop addition, he poured all of the hops in, and then he thought it was good to act like a sniper with the hose. He really didn't want a boil over. After the 60-minute boil was finished, we basically had to reconnect all of the hoses and get all of the hoses to connect to the pump and then connect to the kettle as well as the fermentation tank. Once all of the wort was put into the fermenter, we had to pitch the yeast. So it was a lot more yeast, again scaled to a 7-barrel system than for our 5-gallon batch. We will let the Grapefruit IPA sit in the fermenter at 66 degrees Fahrenheit until we throw in our last addition of hops. We'll also go ahead and throw in some grapefruit zest as well as the grapefruit juice that we used for our smaller version. So brewing at 300 Suns on this 7-barrel system was way different to me than brewing on our 5-gallon homebrew batch. So I have 5 reasons. First one, well, it was just really cool brewing on such a big system. The second reason was because we got to do all grain. All grain it takes a little bit more time, but I think it's a really cool process to see how it all works. Reason 3 is next time James and I will probably be brewing on a mash tun. Well, we're going to go purchase and put one together. Don't know how we're going to do it. There may be a video on how to make your own mash tun, but we'll see. But really cool process. Reason number 4, it was really cool to see how breweries actually make their beer. This is similar to how Dan and Nick make their beer every single time they make it. And rule number 5, it was just really cool. I really enjoyed making this beer on this huge system. And also, we're gonna have beer at a brewery. So if you ever get a chance and you're in Longmont, Colorado, feel free to stop by 300 Suns Brewing. It's on 1st in Maine. And try out the beer. It should be ready about mid-September. Alright, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And please, if you like this content, please hit that like button. Hit subscribe below so you can receive more of these videos. But now we also did a little interview with Dan and Nick about the brewing process. So here you go. So I apologize that it could be hard to hear in some parts, but we didn't have a microphone that we can attach to the camera. So just bear with it. They have a lot of good things to say about just the brewing process, some mishaps, and where they're going to be taking 300 Suns over the next few years. But thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. All right, so we're with Nick and Dan, brewers of 300 Suns. They're graceful.
We are graceful.
They're graceful. They're very graceful.
I've read all the brewing. It's very...
Yeah.
So great.
We're very gracious that they're letting us brew the beer that we brewed on their system. So we have a few questions.
Go for it.
First one, what's the biggest difference between home brewing and brewing on a system like this?
Besides the quantity?
Besides the quantity.
Besides the quantity.
Any technical differences?
There's not a lot of technical difference, actually.
Okay.
Just different equipment, different sizes, and it takes a lot more time to transfer beer from point A to point B. But mostly it's
Barrels versus gallons.
barrels versus gallons.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
That's about it.
I got one. What's the craziest issue you've ever run into? Or something.
Stuck mash ones.
Stuck mash, that one's always probably the worst.
Yeah. But when we first opened, we weren't quite ready with our system and figuring out what was doing what. We ended up dumping half the barrels down the drain. Not on purpose, but not on purpose. But the gravity didn't do what we thought it was going to do, and the pump didn't pump where we thought it was going to pump, and ended up with like a 3-barrel batch instead of a 7-barrel batch. That was fun.
I think that's quite as efficient.
No.
I think that's when you slap the limited sticker
Yeah.
and then charge an extra bar for
Yeah.
fiber. Yeah.
But we figured it out.
Yeah, we won't have too many disasters. We're not that hard.
No. We kind of figured it out over 3 years.
I think I'm here when Nick fixes everything.
Nick fixes everything.
Yeah.
He does.
I know disasters since I've been here. That's why I'm still here.
Yeah. There's safety in numbers.
Yeah. Well, the red would be the most recent.
Most recent, but we're not going to talk about that. We're still.
That one's off record.
And we're still.
Yeah.
Too soon.
What are your plans going forward?
Keep brewing beer.
Brewing beer?
Yep.
Second hop edition?
Second hop edition in 8 minutes.
Yeah. That's all my future holds.
Yeah. That's as far as I can think. We're hoping to expand our selections into bottles and cans at some point. We're getting the crawlers soon, so we can start putting out some specialty crawlers. And just experimenting and trying new beers that we want to try from other places that we've been to. Things that have been on the list of things to do but have not completed yet. I have a triple that I want to do. I have another Belgian style beer that we have that we want to do. Hone in our IPAs a little bit more. That kind of stuff. Nick's got some ideas that we need to try.
Yeah, we got a fresh cocktail that we're going to do eventually.
That's coming up.
That's coming up soon. I want to do some small batch sours.
This turned out well.
Yeah.
So it's
We want to try to
it's like what it sounds like. Fresh hop. Fresh hop is as soon as they harvest the hop, they bring it up to us and we use it as quickly as possible. So it's as fresh as we possibly can get it. So hopefully, I'm told it's be harvested the same day that we use it.
Perfect.
Which is
Super fresh.
super fresh, super wet. So.
What is the name of the beer? Fresh.
Super wet.
Write that down.
Yeah.
I think we've got it on tape, so.
Yeah.